Hey X-Files fans, Board now back with you. On this video I will be talking about Season 2, Episode 12 of the X-Files. The episode is called Aubrey, but no, it's got nothing to do with Aubrey Plaza. She's not in it, but this guy is.
Don't tell me what I can't do.
Hey, don't you walk away from me. You don't know who you're dealing with. Don't ever tell me what I can't do. Who you're dealing with. Don't ever tell me what I can't do, ever. This is destiny. This is destiny. This is my destiny. Don't tell me what I can't do. Don't tell me what I can't.
Yes, it's Terry O'Quinn with hair and a freaky porn star style moustache. He guest stars in this one, which I'm going to say from the off is one of the great unsung episodes of the X-Files. I'm not sure the fans really talk about this one enough. It took me by surprise tonight when I rewatched it, because it'd been a long time. I remember it being good, solid, whatever, but it actually surprised me how much I really like this. It has a lot of the great things that you associate with the X-Files at its best, and it really does fire on all cylinders. Now, it's directed by Rob Bowman. This might be his first episode directing, or certainly it's an early one for him, and he's obviously one of the core. When you think of like the top X-Files director, he has a very distinct, very cinematic, visually distinct style, so he definitely has great moments in this of direction. And it's written by someone called Sarah B. Chano, who I've not seen before on the X-Files credits. I'm not sure if she's written other episodes or not, but I think that's important, especially when you get more into the episode, because I think later on, and with the twist to the episode, it does have quite a feminist sort of feel to it, or at least that's the way I interpreted it, with a certain turnaround, turning of the tables and revenge style plot that happens later on. So, but it's a very strong episode. I really like this one. So the setup is, then we start off with the Terry O'Quinn character. I think his name's Brian Tillman. He's like a detective, and they're like he's sort of caught up in his work investigating this like local case. And his girlfriend, or affair as it's revealed later on, BJ, played by this actress Deborah Strang, well, she comes in and reveals that she's pregnant. She does it in this way where she writes like a note to like get his attention, and he gives her an address of a motel where they can go and talk later on about it. She goes to the motel, and in spooky, weird X-Files fashion, she ends up in a graveyard, a very freaky graveyard, where she uncovers this body that has been buried there for years and years, and it turns out that it's the body of this Detective Cheney, who has been missing for like 40-50 years, since the 40s anyway, and it turns out that he investigated similar type cases to the X-Files, to Mulder and Scully, but as things develop and they investigate more, they determine that there's some sort of connection between what's happening in the present with BJ and this case, and what's happened in the past with Cheney going missing, and it becomes a whole sort of thing, this whole slow burn like investigation. So first of all, I mean, just talking about the performances, and I'll talk about this actress, as I said, Deborah Strang plays like BJ. There's the sort of like second billing of the episode, if you like, after Mulder and Scully. And I don't think I've ever seen this actress before in anything, or at least I don't remember seeing her in anything. And she's great. She's fantastic. She carries so much. The character has to do so many different things over the course of the episode, because you see a lot of different sides to the character. She starts off as this very sort of quiet, sort of nervous presence, where she's very much in the background of the episode, but she slowly builds like the character over the course of the episode and does different things. She's very vulnerable. She sort of sums up being very like traumatized and haunted very effectively. Like, it's all in her face and the way she just carries herself. But then as we get the twist and the way things develop later on in the episode, where she actually becomes quite a threatening presence, she does that very well as well. So it's a really great performance. It's one of the best guest star performances I've seen in the X-Files, and as I said, I don't remember seeing this actress in anything else, so that's important. Now, some of the things I was talking about with like the feminism and stuff, I think part of that's important when you think about, as I said, this character who at the start of the episode seems very much in the background, not being taken seriously. It seems like Tillman, the Terry O'Quinn character, doesn't take her too seriously, and you have that whole thing about her having to write a note about, you know, she's pregnant to get his attention, and there's certain reveals to do with that later on in the episode. There's a reveal that they are having an affair sort of thing, which Scully figures out, and that's a nice scene because, like she says, call it women's intuition. So I think with certain moments like that, you can see like a woman's touch on the script. So those touches are really nice. And as I said, I'll get to the reveal and how the episode goes, but I think there's definitely this idea of this woman being traumatized over many years and being a victim at the hands of like really drastic, really extreme, really cruel male figures, but then kind of having this certain power to turn it around. But there are like supernatural like reveals and means behind that. But very good performances. I think maybe a small complaint, Terry O'Quinn could have been used a bit better, but he does what he has to very well. He's very effective. There is like a moment in the episode where he's sort of almost going full-blown John Locke, not quite. There's this terrifying character of Coakley who's like becomes the main suspect in this case, and it turns out he was involved in the case years ago around the time that this detective went missing. But there's a scene, well, just seeing him, he's just this grisly sort of terrifying old man who just has a real creepy sort of presence. And once again, because there's this stuff with like bones and with like when they dig up the corpses where there's like brother sister carved on it, and there's this thing with him where he like is quite demeaning towards Scully, like he calls her little sister. Now that becomes like a plot point that connects him to what's going on because of, as I said, the sister being like carved on the skeleton. But also it sort of feels like he is this very like old-fashioned, you know, really sexist asshole, and I think that maybe plays into like the gender stuff of the episode as well. So it's really well cast, it's really well paced. You've got like a really sort of satisfying slow burn noir style plot where I think certain things happen and you question them. I think at one point, probably just because he's played by Terry O'Quinn, but you sort of question like, can Tillman be trusted? I mean, is he gonna somehow be involved in this? What's going on? And of course, it's revealed that he isn't. But there's question marks over that. And I think when you have certain reveal, like the fact that one of Coakley's victims was pregnant, she actually, when she was raped by him, she got impregnated, which does take the episode to a really dark place. There are some very dark, very psychological moments in this, because also BJ has like these dreams of like where she appears to see what's going to happen. Like she sees at one point the next victim. So those scenes are very well handled, very like good visual moments, and really effective. So it's a very psychologically tense episode at times. But yeah, as I said, certain plot developments where it's a slow burn plot, but then certain things happen, and it's a really satisfying like plot because it's the sort of, as I said, slow burn noir where these things happen and it sort of points you in certain directions, but then there are like swerves and different reveals, but also there is kind of this sort of mystery to it where it does give you enough of a bone to like chew on, where you could like think, well, is this going to be a reveal, or is there going to be something to this? You can sort of form your own ideas, is what I'm saying. So there's enough of a mystery, enough of a suspense to like keep you kind of glued and on the edge of your seat, but at the same time there's a lot of like mystery, there's a lot of work you can do. I think there's stuff in the episode, and it's partly maybe there to like throw you off the scent, but there's certainly stuff there where you can start to form your own opinions and or predictions of what might happen, and sometimes that's some of the best mystery work. Also, I think, speaking of the noir stuff, that's maybe intentional with Terry O'Quinn's character and the look of him, because he definitely looks like a very traditionally buttoned up, like noir style detective. So that works very well. As I said, Rob Bowman directs it, so I think it has a real sort of zip to it. Like there's some really distinct, flashy visual moments that serve what's going on. It's not like overly flashy, but for example, when BJ goes to this motel in the middle of the night and you get like the sparkle and the crackle of like the neon like hotel sign, that's really effective. That's a good visual moment. Her in like this graveyard is like very sort of gothic and unsettling. And later on, when they're looking at like these bones, that there's some good sort of prop work going on there. So it's very well directed by Bowman. He really brings the energy and mood to life. It's called Aubrey because there's this case all these years ago, and these events took place in Aubrey, Missouri, and once again, there's some good work there on location where they really bring this small town to life. And I think there's some good Mulder and Scully moments as well. Like they're on good form in this episode where you have some like good dialogue back and forth, some good theories. I mean, I did enjoy Scully's theory. I can't remember what she calls it in the episode, where she kind of says about this idea of growing up around like law enforcement, like if you have someone in your family who investigates crimes, and she maybe puts this down to Aubrey, sorry, not Aubrey, Freudian slip there, she puts it down to BJ and these dreams she are having, like these almost premonitions, that maybe it could be because she grew up and overheard her father, I think it is, talking about Case. And Mulder sort of questions this and says it is not sure if it quite works like that. But at one point, like he's talking about this idea of like he grew up like liking sort of sunseeds and stuff, and they sort of have this sort of argument where Scully is sort of like her theory is, because Mulder's using like a psychological theory where it's almost like you get it from your parents sort of thing, whereas like he quotes Freud at one point, whereas Scully is sort of question that and saying normally you develop certain tastes for things based on your environment, and a bit later on, it just doesn't happen at home type thing. So discussions like that I really like, and there's one or two. There's not much humour in this episode, but there's a couple of good lines that are quite amusing. Like there's a line where they're about to go off to investigate it, and Scully kind of points out that okay, so this is why we're investigating, and Mulder's like, yeah, that, and I've also had. I'm also intrigued by women called BJ. I quite like that line, and then later on when they're having this discussion, about the theories, it's like Mulder at one point. Because Mulder questions Scully's theory and as being a bit out there, and Scully's like, well, you've been known to have some out there theories, Mulder, and he sort of rather deadpan and playfully says, I never have had such theories, so I like that moment as well. But yeah, you get this really nicely placed twist late in the episode where it's actually revealed that BJ is Copeland's granddaughter. And so the sort of twist is because they suspect that somehow Copley is doing this, and of course with it being X-Files, it does turn out to be a bit more supernatural than what Scully is predicting, and that is sort of the twist, and he's actually doing it, but he's doing it through BJ. So, because he can't physically do it, we see that he can barely move from the living room to the kitchen without because he's got a respirator type thing. But that's the twist, and then he's actually doing it through BJ. They never fully explain that, but it's almost like she's being forced to do his work for him, and they sort of pull it down partly to a line at the end. They put it down to the pregnancy, then maybe that had some sort of impact on her sort of doing it. But yeah, sort of after she goes after this former victim, she then goes after Copley. So that's what I meant a little bit about the sort of almost feminist type angle. And there are certain moments in this episode that definitely feel quite sort of feminist. So I really liked it. I think there's very little to really complain about. I think it definitely has some of the great gothic type feel of a good scary X-Files episode. The plot was very satisfying for me. I liked the twist. Obviously, as I said, some great acting in the episode as well. There were one or two B-movie pulpy style moments which I quite enjoy as well, from my X-Files. So it did tick a lot of the boxes. I thought this was a really strong episode, and I'm going to give it 9 out of 10. As I said before, I think this might be one of my favourite episode so far of the show. It's very strong and probably a bit overlooked if anything. So there you have it. That's my review of Aubrey from the X-Files, episode 12 of season 2. I will return soon with the next episode, which is called Irresistible. That's episode 13, which I've not seen Irresistible for a while, so I don't have many sort of memories or thoughts on that, but it'll be interesting to see how they follow up on this one. Hopefully it'll continue the smooth path, because for those who heard my last review, I really didn't like that episode, so it was good to watch this and come across this time out. So we'll see how Irresistible pans out, but let me know your thoughts on this one, Aubrey, in the comments below. Like and subscribe as always. Share me out on social media. You can support me on patreon.com/boardnow for extra content, exclusive content for just $1 a month, including X-Files commentaries. I'm on season 1 at the moment on the commentary, so some extra perks there on Patreon. But thanks for listening, X-Files fans, and more soon. Goodbye.